Robot Wars has to be one of my favourite TV shows of all time. I loved it when I was a kid and I still love it now. In case you're not familiar, the show revolved around teams building their own robots to fight each other in an arena filled with hazards with the intent of being the final one standing to become the champion. Robot Wars lasted for 7 series in its original run and also notched up 3 additional series in a rebooted iteration several years later. So it's no surprise that with a show that contained hundreds and hundreds of fights, there were some truly iconic ones that came our way. The fight I'm going to be discussing today comes from the first series of Robot Wars Extreme, a spin-off series to the main championship that hosted different side competitions. It was a qualifier battle to advance into a 6-way brawl called an Annihilator, and it involved Behemoth, Stinger and Thermidor too. This fight is truly a legendary one in Robot Wars and it's my personal all-time favourite fight in the history of the show. In this essay I'll give a background on the 3 robots heading into this fight, run down the fight itself, and give my thoughts on it. I'm sure if you've seen any of my other videos, you'll know this format well. All that sound good? Alright, let's go. Heading into the fight, all 3 robots have built up their own resumes and achievements. Behemoth was the most decorated of the 3, having fought in 3 main championships at that point, reaching the semi-finals in their debut campaign in Series 2. The robot got bigger and stronger thereafter with its giant bucket scoop that made it a force to be reckoned with. The one thing that stopped Behemoth during this time was bad luck, going out in Series 3 after being popped by an arena spike and an unlucky judge's decision loss in a close heat final with Exterminator in Series 4. Behemoth was able to notch up success in each of these series though, finishing second in the first World Championship and second again in Series 4's Sumo Basho competition by lasting the full minute against Shunt. Behemoth even went into Extreme carrying a ton of momentum, being awarded the precious Challenge Belt prize on account of its unbeatable nature according to the show. This showed that there was a lot of faith placed in Behemoth to carry a prize that would see it battle many foes to prove its worth, and it had already done just that by beating the Steel Avenger in Extreme's first episode. In fact, just 2 episodes before the one featuring this fight, Behemoth had fought Stinger one-on-one, with Behemoth easily dominating Stinger and winning convincingly. So right there was already a strong chance that Behemoth would come out on top here. Speaking of Stinger, they themselves had headed into Extreme with momentum of their own. Despite an early exit in Series 3, Stinger made up for it by being a tough and difficult opponent throughout Series 4, battering all of its foes into submission with its bludgeoning axe. It had even taken out Series 2 champion Panic Attack in one of the closest decisions in the show up to that point. That right there was a momentum booster. They'd just beaten a former champion. Stinger made it into the top 4 in Series 4, but its run to the championship was ended by then reigning champion Chaos 2, who at that point was the king of Robot Wars. Though it wasn't an easy win for Chaos 2, Stinger put up a tough fight, even managing to damage the champion's back panel, giving it probably the biggest scare of its career, at least in the main competition. Chaos 2 wasn't even able to defeat Stinger by knockout, failing to do its trademark out of the arena tactic on such a slippery machine. Stinger may have lost by judge's decision, but one thing was for sure, it had made Chaos 2 work hard. Since Hypnodisc dropped out of the playoff, Stinger ended up finishing 3rd in Series 4, a massive step up from its Series 3 blunder. Stinger did have a couple of fights in Extreme just before this battle and performed moderately well, one of which we just mentioned was a loss to Behemoth. This loss aside, Stinger was still carrying momentum. Finally, Thermidor 2, who at this point was pretty bare bones in terms of a resume, but still had its own achievements. It had reached round 2 in Series 3 before becoming stronger in Series 4 and reaching the semi-finals, doing so by defeating 2 seeded machines in a row. His Series 4 run was ended by Pussycat, who had managed to give a tough fight to until the eventual series runner-up turned the tables and shredded the lobster to pieces to take the judge's decision win. Thermidor 2 did have achievements heading into Extreme, but compared to Behemoth and Stinger, it was certainly the weakest going into this fight. Despite being the favourite, Behemoth doesn't actually go on the attack, instead just larking about while Stinger does its own thing of flailing around. In fact, it's Thermidor 2 that actually gets the first attack in, catching Behemoth from the side and flipping it, to which Behemoth rolls back onto its wheels. Behemoth then decides to attack Stinger, taking its eye off the machine that had just taken it by surprise. This proves to be a mistake, as when Behemoth larks about again after barging past Stinger, Thermidor 2, who had briefly backed off, sneaks up behind Behemoth and gets another flip in. This time Behemoth is straight up thrown out of the arena in a total unexpected shock of a moment. Behemoth wasn't even close to the arena wall, but the force of Thermidor 2's flip was so strong that the momentum carried it out in a full-on front somersault. Not even 30 seconds in and Behemoth is the first one to go out. Not to mention, it looks so weak here after being billed as the favourite. Thermidor 2 just made it look easy. Now quickly the new favourite for the fight. Thermidor 2 chases Stinger down and tries to use its flipper, But considering what we know about Stinger, it's not the easiest machine to fight, even Chaos 2 struggled against it. There's just not really a way to grab hold of Stinger at all. The pair lumber around for a bit, not really getting any attacks in. They eventually moved towards the wall where Behemoth got tossed out, and you can even see the carcass of Behemoth sitting there in the shadows, creating a really awesome shot. The pit is also open, adding another sense of danger. Even Jonathan Pierce says that it's gonna be quiet now. Eventually, Thermidor 2 rushes for Stinger, catching it by the arena wall, and in a huge bout of luck, it actually managed to grab Stinger. Probably Thermidor 2's claws and overall shape helped it out there. It doesn't just catch Stinger, it gets a flip in on Stinger right in front of the camera, only for the angle to change to see Stinger fall out of the arena as well, almost right next to Behemoth. Thermidor 2 had just become the 4th robot to toss an opponent out of the arena after Chaos 2, Gemini, and funnily enough, Behemoth. Not just that, Thermidor 2 had flipped out 2 robots in a single fight, and they weren't just one and done competitors, they were established big names at this point. The Thermidor 2 dominated the entire fight after being seen as the weakest one going in. With Thermidor 2 being my favourite Robot Wars robot of all time, it's no surprise that this is my favourite Robot Wars fight of all time. I can remember watching this fight on TV and loving it, then I searched it up years after and found a really bad quality video of it, but it was still great to relive it at the time. Thermidor 2 was already my favourite before this battle, so seeing it do something like this obviously made me smile with joy. I will say as well that these 3 in the arena together make for a nice visual alongside the fight being a classic. It's obvious Behemoth didn't see Thermidor 2 as a threat, hence why they didn't go after them at the start, but clearly they took the lobster lightly and paid the ultimate price. Also, that out of the arena flip is monstrous, has to be one of the best in the show. It's so crafty as well how Thermidor 2 just sneaks up behind Behemoth like a predator stalking its prey. The shot from the side arena camera makes for a great visual of that moment right there, and this was the one and only time someone got Stinger out of the arena. No, Sir Killbot does not count because he's a house robot, and it was after Cease was called. Stinger really is a tough machine to fight, but Thermidor 2 didn't break a sweat. It achieved something that not even Chaos 2 had managed to do. I think this fight is a great example of not taking your opponent too lightly. There wouldn't be another instance of 2 robots going out of the arena in a single fight until the second series of Extreme when Firestorm 4 flipped out World War 3 and Bondi Titch. And this was the only time in Robot Wars' original run that these circumstances ended with only 1 robot left in the arena. In every other instance afterwards, the robot which managed to get the double looter was left with another robot in the arena with it. Eruption did achieve this in Series 10, but that was during the reboot era. The reward for Thermidor 2's incredible performance in this mayhem was a spot in the 6-way Annihilator, but the less said about its performance in that tournament, the better. Still, regardless of its disappointing payoff to this showing by the most powerful lobster of all time, it doesn't take away from this fight being one of the great Robot Wars classics and my favourite fight of all time. Anyway, that's all I've got for now. I'm Jay the Taz, and I'll see you next time.